alumni of Afrimine project, are leading mines across Africa and across the world. Even beyond mines, they are also contributing meaningfully to industries that are complementary to the mineral industry, working in governments and pushing policies and implementing, not just pushing, but also implementing policies that have been very hard to implement in the past.
Good morning, afternoon, evening, whatever it may be, wherever you are when you're listening to us. Welcome to Ore-atory. Today I have my friend Tobi, who is with Afrimine, and we are going to explore some really interesting things. Welcome, Tobi.
For inviting me, and I'm happy to be here.
Awesome. Just to kick it off in true Ore-atory fashion, what's getting you excited about your work and what you're doing these days?
I think one thing that excites me about what we do, particularly in Afrimine, is the ability to impact the next generation of mineral professionals and also inspire them to want to pursue a career in mining, but not just pursuing a career, also knowing that someday they're going to be in position of leadership and they will get to use some of the tools and learnings they have taken away from Afrimine when they were with us. So for me, that is very interesting, and I'm really happy to wake up thinking about all of those every day.
Since we have met a while back, I've been waiting for this moment and I'm really excited to have the conversation. And so I like Afrimine because it has such a strong mission and purpose and vision, what it's doing. So let's talk about Afrimine and go from there. Can you lead us off to that?
Yes, so Afrimine is we call ourselves a non-profit organization with a vision of nurturing the next generation of mineral professionals. African mineral professionals, to be very specific, because we believe that we have a lot of resources on the continent and it needs to be efficiently managed, not just for the now, but also for the future. Sustainability in quote. So we are working every day with attracting young people to pursue a career in this space. And we are hoping that very soon we use the learnings that we take away from Afrimine to profile solutions to several challenges that have been experienced within the mining industry, not just in Africa, but also globally. And with regards to our mission, which you referred to, binding pillars. So we have all of our projects are within those three binding pillars, and it also embodies our mission. The first is whatever we need to do in Afrimine, it has to be within a community. And the name of that pillar is called tribe building. So we are building a tribe of people who believe in the mission, who believe in the vision, and are wanting to contribute to making sure it's fulfilled. And whatever we do, all the projects are going to be in a community setting. So what does that mean? It means that you are not handling a project alone. There is somebody assisting you, more or less like a team, but the team could be from different countries. There could be somebody from Ghana, the other person from Nigeria, the third person from South Africa. And as a result of working together in that community, you are learning about the culture of the next person. You're learning about how they think. You're learning about how can I work together with this person in the next couple of years. So we strongly believe in that community framework of preferring solution to any project that we are working on or that we are brainstorming on. So that's the first pillar. And the second pillar is mind shifting. Mind shifting means that we are leveraging on every possible media that we have control and access to. We are young people, so we are more tuned to socials than the traditional way of media. How can we use social to tell the mining story differently? When I was growing up, learning about mining, I was scared because what I heard about is mines are always collapsing.
Yeah.
And for some other people, it's even worse than that. It's community clashes. So my question is, how can we tell this mining story differently? And that's what we've been thinking about in Afrimine. We must let people know that it contributes to their daily living. It contributes to everything that they use on a daily basis. So we try as much as possible to do that as well. And I believe that would also elevate the meaning of what it is to be a mineral professional. So that is something we are doing, mind shifting, improving people's narrative and people's perspective about the industry. And the third one is bridge building. We've always learned that we can't do things on our own. And we know that we need to leverage on the experiences of those that have gone ahead of us. They have experienced so many things. They know what works and what doesn't work. So I think it's going to be foolish of us to, because we are young, think and achieve everything. Because of that, we always make sure we reach out to people who have gone ahead of us to hear what they have to say. And I think beyond just being open to them, I think it's also an African thing to always want to learn from your elders. So for us, that's something we are very keen about. And we also ensure that we build that relationship. And we know that by the time we've gotten these young people exposed to a lot of these experiences, when they are making decisions in the future, all those questions that they got answers to from their experienced professionals will definitely guide them. So those are the three pillars: tribe building, mind shifting, and bridge building. That's what we do within Afrimine, and we strive to continue to achieve within the organization.
What I really like about this concept is that they build on one another. And so tribe building, starting at community and with people as the foundational aspect of everything that we're doing and putting back into that, but then also mind shifting by giving them the knowledge points and then bridge building. All of this sort of one piece is essential to the next piece is essential to the third component. And so I love that it's a very holistic practice at the end of the day, and you're incorporating young people with individuals that have been doing this their entire lives for the most part. And then in the middle, saying, hey, if you don't know about mining, then let's talk about how this impacts you. And I really appreciate the thought that you guys have put into it and what you're doing. And I think in mining globally, that mind shifting piece is a huge part of what we have to do every single day as mining professionals, because as you said, it touches every facet of our lives, whether we're aware of it or not. And so I find that this piece is one that we should be talking about, but also taking a huge amount of responsibility for, because if we're not telling the right story and we're not doing the right things and we're not treating people the right ways, then we don't have any platform to be talking about it in that way. We only get to talk about our failures. And that's what we've done traditionally when there's a death or a failure or something like that on a global nature. And it gives us the responsibility in our hands to one, do things better, but two, to talk about all of the wins, not just the losses. So I really am obviously an advocate for what you're doing.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And ours is very, I call it very strategic because we believe that those that are in the industry can tell the story better.
Yeah.
If you hear people talk about it, they would say, how can we work with media to tell the story? That's a long shot. How can those in the industry tell the story first?
Yeah.
Then that's what we do as a young and what we're doing is we are ensuring who have just gotten career positions within the industry tell the story to those that are younger. They learn about it, they are anticipating, and they also in as well tell to younger people. So it's a snowballing effect, and we are very happy about the results that we are beginning to see within the organization as a result of it. So our approach is those that are in the industry, let us be the one to tell the story first. Others will catch up with us.
And I have spent an ample amount of time perusing the Afrimine website. And so there are so many really interesting resources on there. And I, quite frankly, really appreciate some of the ways and some of the languages you're using to talk about what you do and mining more generally. And building a community of mining geeks is front and center on the front. And I love that because I think we can all identify with that regardless of which segment we fall into. It could be communications or law or engineering or geology. And really, ultimately, like once you get the mining bug, which I talk about all the time, you get to be one of these mining geeks. And we love nothing more than to go to conferences and share stories and talk about what we do. And so you're creating this space. And correct me if I'm wrong, but that's under the Afromine Connect. Is that correct?
Yes,
Okay.
Afrimine Connect was a project that we started a couple of years ago. Interestingly, we've shifted away from the original framework, and the approach initially was how can we get people to connect with themselves? So what we did was we built a system where once you sign up, you get into a database, and once every month you get connected with somebody within that database. And just like how we are having a conversation like this, we get to sit down and talk, introduce ourselves, learn about the industry. And it was a success at that point in time. We also realized that a lot of people now want to meet in person because we started during COVID period. So that was when that idea was initiated. So now we've tried to move away from just online to physical presence, where when there's events, we ensure we host sections within that event to get to meet themselves.
Very cool. Let's back up a little bit. So I've made you do a deep dive into what Afrimine is about, but you said you got started during COVID. So what is the origin story of Afrimine? How did you guys decide to get this going?
Interestingly enough, we got registered here or incorporated here in South Africa, where our HQ is in October 2020. That was the heart of COVID here in South Africa. When you catch up mining, it's just been there from day one. I was a university student, undergraduate in Nigeria for my undergrads, wanting more than what was in the country at that point in time. I started reaching out and learning about the global mining space. I read a lot of magazines about mining. And in fact, at some point, I registered to 4 magazines globally. And every month, my mom, Tobi, this is just too much. You are causing so much, bringing so much debt into the house. And I'm like, no, I'm just trying to prepare for my career in the future. I learned about it and I was so impressed about what is happening globally. And I was like, I'm going to be one of the people who would replicate some of the successes globally on the continent in Africa. And I kept looking for problems because I believe that if you want to provide solution, you must find problems and find answers to the problem. I kept hearing or kept reading about from all of these magazines over the years is that young professionals are going to be the industry is going to lose professionals. And as a result, there will be a huge vacuum that needs to be filled globally. We can provide solutions to that. That's the first thing I thought to myself. The second thing I learned again about was that the industry in itself is losing its luster, meaning that people don't love it as much as they do because there is now technology, there is now at that point, there was a time where people were also taking away their investment from mining, also investing in the likes of crypto and other investment options. So people are losing interest, and I'm like, oh no, this is bad. I'm going to contribute my part in ensuring that does not happen. And I also believe that I can be a part of making sure that there's a continuity in this industry that has always been very important and integral to the way we are doing things. Yeah, I said, okay, let's get started. And I thought building a community was the first thing that we can do. And I started doing that by reaching out to some of the most established community in the world with regards to mining, one being SME, which you are very familiar with, based in the US. And we had a conversation with them. It took us about 2 years or 3 years to have that conversation. But in the end, we built a synergy, and I was the first person to bring that organization into Africa. That was as an undergraduate student, a teenager with so much passion about the industry and wanting to improve the industry. And that was the beginning of building communities in mining. Today, the organization is about 10 years old in Nigeria. They've had about 7 leadership teams, and I'm really excited about how it's been sustainable even after I've left.
Yeah.
And by the time I left the university, I thought to myself, the challenge we had in Nigeria at that point in time, which is also global, I came to South Africa to pursue after I've done some years of working. I saw the same trends within the fabrics of the industry here in South Africa. And I thought to myself, there's a need for us to expand what we did in Nigeria to South Africa. But I knew some of the challenges we had trying to expand SME in Nigeria at that point in time. I said the way to go around it was to figure out how we can do it within a different sort of structure.
Yeah.
And that was how we got started. And our focus at that point in time was let us get started by creating a blog where we share the news about mining and get people to read about it. I remember one of the most famous article I wrote was literally looking at all of the mining projects in Africa that are listed on the Australian Stock Exchange. And I did a deep dive on all of those companies and was talking about what they were doing and why it's interesting. It was a huge success because that was the most huge success at that point in time because we had roughly like 100 reads, which was the highest we've had at that point. But myself and Ayomide, who could not join us in today's recording, we were just talking and they said there must be a way to get more people interested in what we are doing. And we thought about why don't we start an organization that gets people in, they volunteer, and they can also expand what we are doing. People were scared, didn't know what to do. We had our first onboarding session. We had people from DRC, from Ghana, from Nigeria, and these are some of the biggest mining countries in Africa. And we went on a month straight where we started sharing the vision of what we can achieve, what we can do, and how they can be a part of it. And that was just the beginning. After those online meetings every day for like a month, during COVID, the fire was burning. Everybody wanted to contribute their own quota. They went on to be soldiers for Afrimine, and today they are leading either a country team or units within the organization and expanding what we are doing. But yes, that was it, and we are deeply grateful that we got the opportunity to do that because I believe if there was no COVID, we probably would still be writing blogs now. But impact,
I was talking to somebody the other day and they said, never waste a good crisis. And it made me laugh because, or another saying is necessity is the mother of invention. And there's all kinds of ways that we can frame that. But I do really look back at COVID and think it's reshaped the way that we work together, communicate, collaborate, and build community. And I think in spite of the fact that everybody was very detached and stuck in their homes and trying to figure out what was going on, there was such a thirst for connection during that time that, like, out of that, I have seen a few really incredible communities be built. And you guys obviously took full advantage of that time period to build Afrimine, which I think is a really beautiful outcome from a situation that was really difficult for many people all over the world. And if that's a silver lining, I'm certainly here to appreciate it. But
thank you.
yeah, it's pretty incredible to see how far and how much you guys have done. And every time I visit the website, there's something new and different. And as I said, the language, even in terms of how you talk about what you're doing, it says Afrimine is a nonprofit initiative dedicated to showcasing the beauty of the mining and mineral related industries. And like very infrequently, and maybe even never, have I seen beauty be part of the mission statement in any community, in any mining website, any publication that I read about it. But I think that most of us that are part of the industry certainly see beauty in it. So I love
Yes,
that you've put that there.
yes. And I think at the point we were putting it together, we didn't think about it having so much effect on how people would view our organization.
Sure.
But we realized that I think because we were younger, probably if we had more experience with the industry then, we would have used the technical jargon that people normally use. But we were
Yeah.
just innocent and we wanted to do something for the industry. So we used
Mhm.
the simplest language, language that we know, or terms of
Mhm.
vocabulary that we know, just to communicate it better. And also, the audience is to get people who are not in the industry to love the industry. So whatever way we can minimize that friction, we'll then show them keep doing it. And yeah, that's the beauty of it.
It really is. And so we've said the word beauty several times, which I'm all for at this point. But let's talk about how you got into mining a little bit, because you started talking a little bit about getting involved with SME when you were really young and what your mom was saying. And so I now have to hear the Tobi origin story to how you got into mining.
One thing you know about Nigerians, if you get to meet a lot of Nigerians, is Nigerians are well educated globally. In fact, I think there was some statistics that Nigerian Americans are one of the most educated in the country. So my dad was a civil engineer, my mom was a social worker. So definitely I had to go to university to go pursue a degree. And I wanted to be an engineer because I'd watched my dad and I loved how he carried himself as an engineer. But I was confused. I was thinking, which division of engineering would I pursue? And I had my own ideas: chemical engineering, computer engineering, aeronautic engineering. But each time I listened to radio or TV at that point in time, I would hear the newscasters and a few other people just talk about how Africa is blessed, how Nigeria is blessed with minerals. At that point in time, the number that was thrown around is we had 44 economically viable minerals in the
Wow.
country. And at that time, we didn't have enough mines in the country. And I said, that's a problem. And that's a challenge. And I think because I also have sort of an entrepreneurial, I'm
Mm.
always looking for problems to propose solutions to. So I said, let's take that bull by the horn. Let's go find solutions to that. So I said I was going to pursue mining engineering. And it was weird because all of my friends were either going to pursue something in the medical space
Mhm.
or more interesting engineering. I'd never seen a mining engineer at that point in time, but I took up the challenge of wanting to pursue a career within that space. In fact, by the time I went to search for the universities, at that point in time, there was no internet like this where you can just Google how many universities in Nigeria had mining. So I went to a brochure and I was looking at it, and I realized that it was just one university in the entire country. And by the way, we're about 200 million people in Nigeria, so it's a very big country. Had and guess what? It was just 15 minutes away from my house. And I was like, no ways. I'm not going to university this close to the house. I need to travel out of my state and my home. But because I wanted to pursue mining, I said, you know what? I was going to go to the university. It was there I met the first mining engineer ever. I learned about the principles of mining. I loved it from day one. And I realized some of my classmates did not even like it. I was like,
No.
why would you like this beautiful industry? But because the industry was very small at that point in time, people could not relate to it. And that was how I got into mining, pursued my undergraduate degree. During vacation, I would go look for vacation work with it to improve my knowledge and practical experience within that space. And by the time I graduated, I'd acquired so much knowledge about the technical stuff and also the global stuff. Things happen within the global space. And I read so much because I naturally test for knowledge. So I'm always reading about the industry and wanting to be current, such that by the time I meet global personnel, I can also exchange from that level of understanding. So I graduated and I decided to pursue a career in consulting. And at that point in time, I'd mentioned initially that we didn't have mines at that point in time. But interestingly, before my time of study, we had mines. We had some of the biggest in the world. In fact,
Mhm.
Nigeria was part of it, where we supplied tin to the
All over the
world.
place.
Uh,
Yep.
yes. We also had coal, which was used to power electricity and a few things. Something just happened and it went moribund.
Sure.
But I graduated, I pursued a career in consulting, and the consulting we did was we worked with a lot of high net worth individuals in Nigeria to convince them to invest in mining. We had a few successes, and in fact, one of our clients is now currently the largest mining gold mine in Nigeria. At that point in time, where we did a lot of advisory for them, and it was a huge success. I was fulfilled, sat in tables in meetings where we had to sit with people and discuss about the prospects and ensuring that their asset was economically viable. We are also de-risking for them. So that was my first exposure, and it made me realize it made me look at mining from the top down, not only from the operational perspective. When I was studying during those holidays, I always made sure that I get the technical experience,
Yeah.
but it was a different perspective from the managerial perspective and how they make decisions about money, how they make decisions about investment, how they assess assets and decide which of the drill holes they focus on to expand operations. And that for me was like, okay, now I've seen both and I know that this is beautiful. What knowledge do I need differently that would add to all of that I know? And I said, you know what, to pursue a postgraduate. And my specialization in postgraduate was in mineral economics. And I got exposed to how demand and supply from a global perspective works within the industry. And I think my most interesting class was the part around mineral marketing. And I keep saying it every time I get to discuss with people about it. An average person would not know that there is such a space within mining because you're a technical professional or again, a manager. And I learned about how contracts were being made, how they critically look at positions and look at the growth prospect of countries, and how countries and people sign contracts to buy and seal deals within the mining industry. And I was so impressed. I was like, yeah, this is beautiful. I sat on tables and the meetings, but it was just from a money perspective, but
Mhm.
not from how demand globally can influence that investment. And I loved it. Met incredible classmates from all over Africa.
Yeah.
And that was just it. Today, pursuing a PhD in mining, interestingly in a very frontier area, looking at how we can deploy AI to South African mine. I'm
Yeah.
also a deep love of technology. I got my first computer at age 7. And ever since then, I've been learning how to use computers. So I tell people that for me, it's a triangle. It's
Yeah.
mining, it's business of mining and technology. So whatever
Yeah.
can link those three, I'm
Yeah.
in.
Well,
So
and
yeah,
this is echoed
yeah,
on the Afrimine website, and you've talked about
yes,
technology, you've talked about building relationships, you have amazing
yes,
partnerships with a variety of both companies
yes,
and Mining Indaba.
that's
You are actually putting all of these passion points into play. I love your origin story because it's very unique. I talk to students and professionals in the mining industry at all levels all the time, but very infrequently do I get to see someone coming out of an early stage, engineering degree who has access, as you did, from seeing it from the top down and getting all of these really interesting points put in. I advocate for subsidizing that lack of access with increased collaboration or networking with other professionals so that they can at least hear the stories, even if they can't participate and see it like you did, because all of that changes your perspective. To be able to have the opportunity to understand all of the inputs and how it affects change and global policy and how commodities are being traded and why and how you're working to manage people and organizations is huge. So many individuals wind up saying, okay, I'm going to be a geologist and therefore go do drilling programs, and I am this part of the process. But if you understand the entire thing, that's a massive
yes,
opportunity mode. I think when we understand all of mining from a process standpoint, that you understand how geology affects the mine planning and the mine planning affects the production and how, all the rest of the stuff. And so I think that's a really amazing opportunity that you had. And clearly it has shaped how you do and what you do and all of the passion points. And I love seeing them happen in the background and like connecting the dots as you just told me that story. The other areas that I would love to talk about are one of the things that I saw on your website as I was looking earlier was the career in mining roadmap. And this has got me so excited. And I wish that I had a screenshot so that I could show, but I don't want to do that at this point. So we'll have to share it as a link to the website after the fact. But it's a really cool thing, and I'm sure that you probably had a huge impact on how this was designed. But let's talk about both the careers in mining portion on your website, because people can go and sign up and get a newsletter and be alerted to roles, it sounds like. But then there's also this roadmap. And I think the question that I'm asked most often from students within the Americas, for the most part, is if I get a geology degree, if I get a mining engineering degree, what am I going to do? What happens next? And this kind of answers a lot of those questions. So I'm going to share it a lot. But let's talk about both the careers in mining portion and then the roadmap, if you don't mind.
yes. Career mining is one of our most successful projects, and what we do there is since November 2020, 2021, we've been having guests every single month from across the mining value chain come share their experience with us, share what their day-to-day activity look like in their role in their
Yeah.
companies. And till today, well, I think we've had close to 5,000 people sign up for that particular project.
Wow.
Yes.
That's
And
amazing.
thank you so much. And every month we share invitations to come join the live event. And for those who could not join, we send them. We have young people who join, interview these professionals. So one thing we also do is whatever we are doing, we do with the resources in our network. So young people who are just starting their careers in mining, they are the interviewers. They sit down with these professionals and ask questions they would normally ask. Anybody will ask when they're about to begin their career. Well, how do you navigate this? What did you do different? How did you figure out this niche?
Yeah.
And these professionals share their story, just like I'm doing right now. They learn about it, they note it down, and they figure out how they can manage their career plans based off the learnings that they do. So far, we've had close to 40 guests in all of those months. And every month, there's a team dedicated to that. We market it and we get professionals. One thing we have to try to do is to ensure that these are people that young people can relate to, not just people that are at CEO level that probably it's been so many years that they've left university. We've had lawyers who are working within the industries. We've had medical professionals who are working within the industries. We've had technical engineers who are working within the industry. We've had people from academia. It's across the entire mining value chain.
Mhm.
And it's been really a huge success. We are really happy about the impact that we've made with that project.
Do you, and this may be like too far beyond what you can control in that situation, but do any of the early stage professionals or students wind up connecting more personally with the presenters or find mentors or other things out of this? Because I would imagine that sort of works also as like a mentor network or at least access to people who might be potential mentors.
I think we've seen results in that space. We've had people who came in as guests who had
Yeah.
never heard about us, wanting to volunteer to join us to mentor
Oh,
people.
yeah.
And it's not the first time that it's happening. It's happened several times. They love the engagement. In fact, currently we have it in dual languages. We have the French version of it, we have the English version of it, and we keep saying that very soon would have the Arabic version because those from the Northern African region are Arabic speakers. We also have a lot of people from the Western African
Yeah.
section that are French speakers. So that's why we are having both versions. Because of the structure of the events, that's what we keep looking at. How can we expand? How can we ensure that we benefit some more from it? But yes, what you said is correct. People have wanted to mentor people and share back and give back their knowledge. And also, it has also expanded because as a result of what we are doing, we built that relationship with Mining Indaba. It's the largest
Mhm.
mining investment conference probably in the world,
Yeah.
but obviously in Africa. And what we do at that conference is every year we have a section on the last day of the conference where we invite young people from across Africa to come. Last year we had, I think, 500 people in the hall, and we
Wow.
brought mentors from across Africa to sit down with these young people to share their experience with them, which is an of this career mining event. So that's also a huge success, and that was where
Yeah.
we made some of our mutual friends.
Well, very cool. So did you get that? You had 500 students come last year?
Yes, yes, that was the size of people. In fact, we had to turn some people back because we didn't have space for them. And that's in
Wow.
collaboration with Brunswick and Mining Indaba. Yes, and as a result, again, a lot of people volunteered to join us within the organization, and they're doing incredible things within the organization right now.
That is
And
incredible. Just to like wrap listeners' minds around this, like we're looking at roughly 330 mining graduates out of the US annually. So you had more students at a conference than we release with bachelor's degrees from mining schools annually at this point. And so it's just blowing my mind a little at the moment. So huge success. I love hearing that. And we obviously globally need more individuals interested in mining and to help subsidize their access and understanding to it and insulate their career path because I think that we have traditionally been an industry that has been cyclical. And so a lot of people, not just from a safety standpoint, are concerned with their futures in it. They're concerned because they may not have a job when the cycle changes or something like that. And so I think also understanding it, getting the bug, figuring out how they can chart their path forward is really important. So that leads me then to your roadmap, which is so cool. So we will share this, but I have it up in front of me. We can't possibly talk about every section of it, but it's like the most thorough thing I have ever seen. So, how did you develop this?
it wasn't internet I developed. It was when we were strategizing for that particular project, we started reaching out to organizations that we've worked with in the past and we also know of, figuring out what it is that we can use as a template to look at how we can begin to identify professionals across the value chain to invite them. So in the process of researching, we stumbled on this as well from the Australian Institute of Mine
Yep.
Mineral Professionals.
Yep.
And that was where we got that particular document. And we said, yes, we are not going to change anything. We're going to take this
You don't have to do another
and begin to implement it. But what
one.
we've done with it is we've looked at it and said, let's begin to invite people from each of these sections and share the experience with those who are within our network.
That is really cool because also it is a visual like opportunity to think, okay, even if I go to school for X, there are all these
Yes,
other inputs that will affect
yes,
what I get to do and how all of this happens. And having worked with SME and other associations here in the US, I think often we think only about STEM and about the individuals that are coming that are easy access, right? Mining engineers, geologists, processing, et cetera. And for me, coming into this one, without a technical background, and two, from not a traditional sort of mining background from family or otherwise, I have found that there's space for nearly anybody in mining, but how we get involved sometimes happens to be an accident, and most of the time a happy accident. But I think that if we start talking and building those communities and building bridges and subsidizing that knowledge base, that this sort of infographic, so to speak, is one of those things where you can just easily talk to students and say, hey, there's a place for you here.
Just to buttress that point, we've had people who, as a result of their exposure to Afrimine and this particular, have been able to find a niche for themselves within mining. Yes, they did study that very technical role, mining engineering or geology or geochemical engineering, but they realized that is not where their strength is. And some of them, we've had them move into the insurance part of mining. We've had some people move into the finance part of mining. We've had some people say, you know what, I'm going to go into this particular division of mining, and they are contributing meaningfully to the industry and also to the organization, and letting people also know that you don't have to really go into production. There are other options within the industry that you can specialize in.
Yeah, which is a really important thing to note because I think sometimes you may not like your first choice, but if you say no, you're never going to get to the second choice.
Definitely.
Okay, so refocusing back on Afrimine, can you tell me how individuals, it's fairly transparent on your website, but you can sign up to volunteer. How do companies sign up and get you information about opportunities that they may have? Is there any formal process for that? Because getting more opportunities out there so that we can get jobs for individuals who have interest in mining, I think is a huge priority. So we don't lose them to other industries or internships or just access to mentors. So how can people partner with Afrimine?
Thank you for that question. The first thing is get on our website. There's a section there. If you click on that, you'll see how you can volunteer. And for organizations who want to partner with us, there are ways you can do that on that same section of the website. There is a partner section where you just click on and you pop us an email. There's a team dedicated to that who would respond to you almost immediately and give you all the pathways to navigating around that. So that's how we partner with organizations and build that relationship.
Okay.
And for those who are looking for jobs and wanting to give access to people within our network jobs, the same thing applies to you. Just click on the partner section of the website and we'll reach out to you as soon as we see your email.
Okay. Awesome. That's pretty simple because sometimes I feel like there's a lot more button clicking and a lot more hurdles to get through. So I
Yes, and
appreciate
even
that that's simple.
yes, thank you so much. And also, you can also get to reach us through all of our social media outlets. LinkedIn being the very professional network. We also have access to some other ones like X, Facebook. But just get on our website. It's quite easy. Contact us or the volunteer section and click on partner. That's all.
Perfect. And we will link the website, your LinkedIn, if that's okay, and all kinds of other things. So we'll just steal all these links and put them on there. I guess as we wrap things up, what is your hope for your career and your impact on the mining industry? Big question, I know.
I'm a very big people person, which means that I really care about people and how they can meaningfully succeed in life. But beyond just success, individual success, how can you give back? How can you contribute? So, in response to your question, I would say my big picture is waking up at 70, at age 70 or age 80, and realizing that people who have gone through Afrimine training, the alumni of Afrimine project, are leading mines across Africa and across the world. Even beyond mines, they're also contributing meaningfully to industries that are complementary to the mineral industry, working in government and pushing policies and implementing, not just pushing, but also implementing policies that have been very hard to implement in the past, bringing in investment into the continent in a way like never before, and also becoming entrepreneurs and making so much money that they can continue to develop their communities and expand the impact of what we do in Afrimine. I think that would be the joy.
I knew you were going to give me a good answer. So I'm glad I asked the question, and I think you're well on your way to doing many of those things. And I so appreciate your taking the time with me today, Toby, and talking about Afrimine and your orientation to mining and what that impact is really going to look like. And I'm so excited that we get to put that out there, and also that you have over 500 students going to this program on an annual basis is still just blowing my mind. So thank you so much for being here. We'll have to do a part two and perhaps lead up to something for next year. But I really appreciate your being here and sharing all of this information. To all of our viewers, listeners, etc., please go check out the website. It is really a gem.